And good afternoon, producer Susan. Has it cooled down in your neck of the woods yet?
A little bit, but it's still very humid.
We're supposed to get some horrendous thunderstorms tonight and then a 15-degree drop in temperature. So
Well, they just rolled through here about an hour ago.
did it help? You don't know yet.
It's pretty muggy out now.
All right. Anyway, before the storms hit here and the thunder starts to drown us out or we lose power, you want to hear what we're going to try to talk about?
Yeah, what's on the agenda?
All right. Well, today's the 17th. Actually, I had the notes that it was the 16th because we were going to do this last night. So today's July 17th. It's been a week and a half since the shooting in Pennsylvania where Trump got shot and the firefighter got killed. Things are settling down. The Republican National Convention has started. So far, no big surprises other than J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio, who used to be a never Trumper, has been his vice president pick, was so interesting. Anyway, you know who Oscar Wilde is?
Yes.
Playwright and author, the late
Yep.
Oscar Wilde, I should say. Great quote from him as to why experience is the hardest teacher. I love this quote. We'll get to it in a little bit. Now, when the stupidest thing I heard all week, I originally only had one, which was a list of the stupid things people had said about the shooting, the attempted assassination. But then this morning, the head of the Secret Service came out explaining why there were no Secret Service agents stationed on the roof of that building where the shooter was. And that is clearly a contender for this too. When you hear why she claimed they didn't put any agents on the roof of that building, it's clearly a contender for the stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll let the listeners decide. In a close runner-up to the stupidest thing all week, we'll tell you in what city the mayor declared a police station to be a school and why. Is a police station a school?
No, a police station is a police station.
Well, in one major city, the mayor declared a police station to be a school, and I'll tell you why. We'll tell you why a federal judge in Florida dismissed the classified documents case against Donald Trump. Did you hear about that one?
No, I did not.
Well, you're aware of the case, right? When the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago.
Yes. Yep.
Well, that case has been dismissed by a federal judge in Florida, and we'll tell you why she dismissed it. We'll tell you where, in what state, members of the LGBTQ community have decided to protest a proposed legislation that would have increased penalties for sex trafficking with minor children. Can you think of a stupider thing to do than to come out on record saying we're opposed to a bill that increases penalties for paying to have sex with minors? I mean,
I personally believe there's a special place in hell for people who abuse children.
well, would you go on record on video on a public forum saying we think this is unfair to members of our community? How embarrassing is that? Anyway, we'll tell you. We'll play a little clip. And we'll tell you what highly collectible items from 10 or 20 years ago are now practically worthless. Do you have any members of your family who collect things?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll tell you what some of those items are. We'll tell you what percentage of government workers are still working from home and why more than 50% of the time you can expect to get a lot of voicemail greetings when you call the government office. We'll tell you what's happening to used car prices and why that is good news for buyers and bad news for sellers. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot comes to us from Seabreeze, South Carolina, where a homeowner shoots and kills a man who first shot and wounded him while attempting to force his way into the man's home. Okay, so anyway, so here's our quote of the week from author and playwright Oscar Wilde. I think it's a great quote. I love this one. Think about it for a second. He said, "Experience is the hardest kind of teacher. It gives you the test first and the lesson afterwards."
Absolutely.
Think about that. You get the test and you may fail it, you may fail the test, and that was the lesson. All right. So one more time. Experience is the hardest kind of teacher. It gives you the test first and the lesson afterward. All right. So have you heard any stupid things about people said about the assassination attempt?
Oh my God. Every conspiracy theory is coming out of the woodwork. All the tinfoil hat people are coming out of the woodwork.
All right.
It's ridiculous. It's really out of control.
Well, originally this was my one and only nominee for stupidest thing. And I'm just going to read you some of the comments I've seen. And these, I'm just going to rattle them off. Did they test for ketchup on Trump's face? Just asking. Don't fall for this false flag Heritage Foundation trying to secure Trump's nomination. Biden better be better protected because this staged assassination will incite some MAGA to unlive Biden because Trump knows he can't win unless someone takes out Biden. Perhaps a staged blood packet. Why was no one behind him hurt?
Which is a huge lie.
Well, actually, no one directly behind him was hurt because the shot came from the side. The Trump came from Trump's right side.
Well, I don't know where the gentleman who was killed, the firefighter who was killed, was sitting, and there
It
was
was
actually two other people.
as you're looking at the TV screen, it was on the far right side of the
Far right,
stage.
okay.
Because, but if you
behind him,
but nobody directly behind. If you were looking straight on at Trump where the cameras were, nobody directly behind him was hit because the bullet didn't come from in front of him. The bullet came from
the
Trump's
side.
right side.
Yeah.
And hit people on the far right side of this. Well, it would have been on Trump's left, but as you're facing the stage, it would have been on the far right. And here's another one. I want to see the scar before I will believe a guy that lies about everything was actually shot. Here's another one. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that this happened just as his polls were dropping. Here's another one. False flag totally staged for TV. He took another play from Vince McMahon and used a razor while he was down to cut his own ear. He staged the same thing in 2016, remember? Here's another one. Staged by Trump to deflect from Project 2025. Here's another one. Haven't seen acting that bad since Home Alone 2. Two more. 100% staged by Trump. Fake. Here's what the last one. He had a shooter killed so he couldn't. He had the shooter killed so he couldn't talk. Like the Secret Service snipers were taking orders from Trump. And by the way, I have 100 more. That's just like my top 20.
Yeah.
So that would have all by themselves won the stupidest thing I've heard all week. That collection of stupid.
Absolutely.
But here's the second. So this morning, so this big hullabaloo made about why were there no agents stationed on the roof of that building that was a mere 150 yards away with a clear line of sight to Trump? Well, here's what the head of the Secret Service explaining why there were no agents on the roof. And this is a quote. That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there. And we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from the inside. Now, as she's saying that, you can look at the pictures of the shooting. You can see pictures, number one, of the two Secret Service snipers. You know where they were positioned?
On another sloped roof.
On a sloped roof behind Trump. Then
and that roof was not very steep at all. I'd say it was maybe 120-degree angle. It was,
and then there's another picture taken the next day of 4 FBI agents walking upright on that same, quote, sloped, that dangerous slope roof. They're just wandering around, picking stuff up. And so to say, well, it was too dangerous, it would have been too dangerous to have somebody up there, clearly incredibly stupid, because you had snipers on a slope roof and the FBI is walking around on the roof that you said was too dangerous. So between the people making these absurd comments and the Secret Service agent, head of the secret, coming up with this ridiculous excuse why there was nobody on the roof, which is the more stupidest?
I think the roof. I mean, the people making those comments. I mean, they're people who ate paste as a child. So
yeah, they're just morons.
I gotta go with the roof. I mean, that roof was not steep at all.
No, it was not steep at all. Hell, I've been on steeper roofs than that. And the fact that
my roof is a 90-degree angle. That was probably
10 degrees,
120, 130.
Well, I mean, maybe it was a 10-degree slope, but the fact that there's 4 Secret Service agents walking around, FBI agents walking around upright, and she had 2 snipers there's a picture, you can look for the pictures of the sniper. They're perched on the peak of a slope roof that was far steeper than the roof where the shooter was. So no, that's complete BS. Yeah. And that has to take them for the stupidest thing. Anyway, so remember I told you about, we have a city where the mayor declared the police station to be a school? You know where
where's this?
That was in New Orleans. And the reason, why they declared it to be a school?
I mean, are they teaching children there?
No, because New Orleans, Louisiana passed a law that allowed concealed carry without a permit if you're a law-abiding citizen and you meet all the requirements. Well, the mayor of New Orleans didn't want people to be able to carry guns in the downtown area, the Bourbon Street area of downtown. So there is a state law that says you can't have a concealed weapon within 1,000 feet of a school. Well, there's a police station there. And he said, well, since we trained some of our new officers in the police station, that's a school.
That's pretty absurd.
It is. And by the way, it got struck down by a state judge. But
Yeah,
that's
good.
the absurd lengths to go to. He says, well, that our police station in the Bourbon Street district is a school, and therefore you can't have a gun anywhere within 1,000 feet, which, by the way, 1,000 feet in each direction is almost a half a mile, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it basically covered all of the downtown business district in New Orleans, and that was their logic. Yeah, it was the 8th District Police Station, and just this morning it came out that state judge overturned it and basically said, "You got to be joking me." So anyway, that would have included the 5 prime blocks of Bourbon Street, which is an international tourist destination.
Oh,
All right.
absolutely.
So let's go on to the Trump classified document, which is a big, big case, the Trump. By the way, when they found Biden with documents, Biden was never president. They found classified documents in a public office he was renting. They found classified documents in a cardboard box in his garage in his house that he was renting to his son, literally in a cardboard box in his garage. At least Trump's home, by the way, so Biden as vice president had no authority to remove a classified document from the White House.
Mhm.
Yet he had boxes of classified documents. He had them in his rented office space. What was it, in the Penn building? In downtown.
Somewhere in Delaware, I believe.
Or I thought it was, maybe it was Delaware. So we had him in a public office building, in a shared office, and he had him in his garage in a cardboard box, open to the landscapers and his son's friends, by the way. He didn't have any Secret Service protection at his house because he wasn't living there anymore. So anyway, the judge dismissed the case because the Merrick Garland, the head of the Department of Justice, had appointed this guy Jack Smith, who was a private citizen, as special prosecutor, and the Trump team appealed and said he has no authority to appoint a special prosecutor to create an office that doesn't exist. Only Congress can create federal offices and appointments. And the judge looked at the Constitution and said, yeah, you're right, that since this guy's not a government employee, he's a private citizen, the head of the Department of the Secretary of what's Merrick Garland's, what's his proper title, head of DOJ?
Oh yeah, I don't know his
Whatever.
official title.
But anyway, that he did not have the authority to create an office, the office of the special prosecutor, and to appoint an ordinary citizen to be a prosecutor, because without the office behind him, this gentleman, Jack Smith, is nothing more than a private citizen, and a private citizen can't bring criminal charges against a former president because he has no standing to do so. So that was the rule. That was a big ruling earlier this week, or maybe it was on Friday. So that case against Trump, now he may try to refile and appoint an attorney from within the Department of Justice, but right now that case has been dismissed. Now, it wasn't dismissed with prejudice, meaning it can be refiled, but if it's going to be refiled, it will never come to trial before the election. So that was the big news. The Trump classified documents case, as we speak today, July 17th, has been dismissed and is no longer active. All right, so let's move on to California. California legislators have proposed increasing the penalties for people paying to have sex with minor children, which is called child sex trafficking. Okay. Mm-hmm. And how can you possibly be against a bill that would increase penalties for child sex trafficking, right?
Yeah, again, there's a special place in hell for people who do that.
Well, this is a 3-minute clip. I'm going to play the first 45 seconds. There's 4 of these members of the LGBT community sitting at a table, all testifying in opposition to this bill. I'm just going to play the first 45 seconds of the first speaker.
That SB 1414 takes an overly punitive approach that fails to address the root causes of these issues and will not effectively stop sexual violence. We are particularly concerned that the harsher penalties proposed in this bill will disproportionately impact marginalized communities, especially members of the LGBTQ community.
Now, let me ask you a question. And I'll play a little more, but why would it disproportionately affect members of your community? Is this something that members of your community participate in on a regular basis? Can you,
I don't understand, because being LGBTQA person and being a child predator are not synonymous. They're two different things, or two different classes of people.
right? So I'm bumfuzzled as to why she's saying that. I'm going to back it up and play that piece again.
The harsher penalties proposed in this bill will disproportionately impact marginalized communities, especially members of the LGBTQ community, who already suffer from systematic biases within the criminal justice system, particularly when it comes to sexually based offenses. Studies have shown that
Anyway, this goes on for 3 minutes, and Susan, I'll put the link in the show notes.
Sure. I'll add it to the website.
And if you want to listen to the whole three, but then the other three speak, and they're all equally ridiculous as to why this bill should not be passed into law. I mean, remember, there's something you need to. There's an old saying: you need to pick the battles, or is this the hill you want to die on today?
Yeah.
Is this a battle you would have fought if you were a member of the LGBT community?
No, I don't see what one has to do with the other.
Exactly. They're totally interconnected, and they're just embarrassing themselves. So, all right. Anyway, so you want to hit worthless collector items. Let me know if you know anybody who collects these things or has collected these things. And this is not the complete list, but it's a partial list. Beanie Babies.
Oh, I know some people who have collected those for sure.
Pandora charms.
Yeah,
Pogs.
the bracelet things. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that one?
Pogs. Remember Pogs, those discs, the Pogs
Oh,
discs?
yeah. I never understood those.
They're worthless now. Model trains.
Oh, that I see. Sheldon Cooper.
Right. Porcelain dolls, Barbie dolls, Cabbage Patch Kids.
I had a couple.
But are you not a collector, though?
Not a collector.
Hummel statue and old film cameras.
Actually, I do know some people who collect old film cameras.
I mean, if they're really old, if they're 100 years old.
Yeah, like 100 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, but not cameras from 30 years ago.
No.
No. So again, Beanie Babies, Pandora charms, Pogs, model trains, porcelain dolls, Barbie dolls, Cabbage Patch Kids, Hummel. There are a bunch of others like these commemorative plates you can buy. Remember the commemorative plate series?
I have a set of McDonald's plates.
Yeah, but they're not like from the Franklin Mint. You remember the Franklin Mint?
No,
stuff?
they're from the 70s, and they're actually worth a lot of money. They're worth about, well, relative. They're worth about $40 each.
Okay. But people who have paid all these money for these Franklin Mint, the like the president said or whatever they were.
Yeah.
They're all. I mean, you get a couple of bucks for them, but you're never going to get back what you paid. All right. So let's talk about used. Now, there was about a year and a half ago, used car prices were at their absolute peak premium. I mean,
Yeah, during the pandemic.
right. And in fact, you almost couldn't find a used car at a reasonable price. I want to try to bring this graph up here. Hang on. But they have actually plummeted. So if you're a buyer of a used car, now's the time. So in January of 2022, which was 27, 28 months ago, the average price of a used car, you want to guess what it was?
Oh, it was probably I want to say 70 to 80% of a new car.
Yeah, it was 23,800. Remember, 23,800. Today it is 17,900. That's a drop of over $10,000. And that's with inflation. That's a drop of over 10 grand. So again, if you bought a used car in January 2020, the average price was 23,800. Today it's 17,900. That's how much plumb. So
and a big part of that was the chips. Because of the pandemic, they couldn't manufacture those chips.
Right. There was
all the cars today are they're all electronic.
Right, and there was a shortage of new cars, so people weren't selling their used cars, so there was a shortage of used cars on the market because people were holding on to their used cars because they couldn't buy new cars. Well, finally, the manufacturers of new cars got caught up, and then people started dumping their used cars that they held on longer than they wanted. And if you look at the trend line from January 2022 to last month, it's almost a straight 45-degree downward slide. So again, you can buy the same car today, $10,000 cheaper than you would have paid 2 years ago. So that's what happened to new, and it's, by the trend line is still going down. So if you want to buy a used car, now's time. If you're selling a used car, well, it's, it sucks to be you because you're not going to get a whole lot of money back for your used car. All right. Do you ever get to work from home occasionally?
Occasionally I do.
Well, and I know a lot of people, some people do. I also know people can never work from home, and particularly, people like policemen, firemen, but there was a study of government workers, excluding teachers, by the way, government workers who are not teachers. And this is at the federal, I'm sorry, it was only federal workers, so that excluded teachers. The percentage of federal workers who are on site full-time, which includes like FBI, Secret Service, these are people who have to be there full-time, is only 64%. And the people, I'm sorry, that was all where I'm like 64%. I'm sorry, I got my graph mixed up. Today, 60 nationwide in all companies, or private and public sector, 64% of all workers are on site full-time. In the government sector, only 6% of government workers are on site full-time. Again, on site could be in the office. It could be, if you're an FBI, in a patrol car somewhere, but only 6% of government workers are in the office full-time. And attempts to get them to come back have been met with extreme resistance from those government workers. So what's your reaction to the fact that only 6% of government workers are in the office more than 50% of the time?
It's, some people can work from home productively and others certainly take advantage of it. I have the option to work from home 4 out of 5 days a week, and I choose not to because I more focused in the office, but I don't know.
Right, but here's the problem. If say you work for Department of Agriculture, USDA, or one of these other agencies, they call the office. I mean, let's say I need to contact the U.S. Department, or I need to contact the EPA.
Yeah.
So I call the number. Well, I don't know who I'm calling, so I don't have the person's name or cell phone number. I'm just calling the Department of Agriculture, maybe with a question about crop and what. Well, I'm going to get the person's voicemail because they don't list or give out, and they don't transfer, because when you call the main number, it's not going through to the person. You get they transfer you to the person's desk phone, and you get that person's voicemail. And maybe
now it's 2024, and I'll tell you, I don't, even when I am in the office, I don't have a desk phone. We do not have desk phones in our office. All of our phone calls come through our computers. So it doesn't matter if I'm working from home or working in the office.
Well, that's you, but you don't work
when my phone
IRS.
rings, it's coming through my computer.
But you don't work for the IRS. You don't work for the Department of Agriculture.
No.
You don't work for the FAA. So I believe it's sad that only 6% of federal government workers are in the office.
I feel like they should be. I mean, come on, it's 2024. This technology is out there and it's available to everybody. Get on board. Get on board
is right. So, all right.
But I physically do not have a desk phone in my office on site. It calls my computer.
Well, good. That's great. But so when somebody calls you, do you do like a video chat, or what? Just
no, I have the choice of either just using audio or video.
Okay, but you can take an audio call. So if I call you, it'll go to your computer, and you can answer my call on your computer.
Yes, I can answer the call on the computer. Right. It even has voicemail if I'm in a Zoom meeting or whatever. It automatically defaults to voicemail so that my meeting's not interrupted, and it.
Right, but that only works because I'm calling you and I know who I'm calling. If I'm just calling your department to speak to somebody in your department.
We actually have an 800 customer service number that is manned by like 5 people, and.
Okay. Well, that's good. Okay.
And this is not new technology. This is 2024. People get with the program.
Well, again, you'll hear people complaining. They call a government office, federal office, and all they get is voicemail. So, and that's why, because only 6% of the government workers are in the office full time. All right. How much time we got?
Let's see. You got a good 10 minutes.
All right, good. Well, let's talk about our taxpayer relief shot and why we call them that. I know we've explained this before, but it's been a while. If a thug is arrested and has to go to trial, first of all, he or she doesn't have the money for his own attorney, so they have to appoint a public defender. And a criminal trial these days, with the government paying the cost of not only the public defender but the prosecuting attorney and the judge and the jury, it's a $250,000 bill just to try the thug. And then if he gets sentenced to jail, these days it's about $80,000 a year to send somebody to a state prison. So 10 years in a state prison, 800,000, 250,000 for the trial. Yeah, the state's in $1 million, and then there might be some parole and supervision expense. So that's why we call them taxpayer lead shots, because when the intended victim shoots and kills the thug, instead of just wounding him to be arrested or police finding the guy, he's saving the taxpayers a lot of money. And here's the sheriff of Santa Rosa County, Florida, explaining this in his words.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
And then, of course, we have two others from our Sheriff Grady Judd down in Polk County, Florida. You'll have to tell us which one of these two you like the best. Here's the first one.
But we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
All right, so that's one of two, and here's the second one. You have to tell me which one you like the best. Here's Sheriff Grady.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
So are you the grated cheese fan, or blow you back out of their house fan?
Like the cheese.
The grated, shoot him so that it looks like grated. I think he meant to say Swiss cheese and say grated.
Swiss cheese, yeah.
Yeah, but I think they're both pretty good. Anyway, so that's what we call them, taxpayer relief shots. Now, this one's a little confusing. This guy, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. He comes to this guy's house. He actually has a gun, and in trying to barge his way into the house, he actually shoots the homeowner. But the homeowner, even though seriously wounded, answered the door with his own gun and returns fire. So you're going to hear about 2 different shots being fired. The intruder fires the first shot. The homeowner fires the second shot. So here we go.
Is dead and another is in critical condition after a shooting that happened overnight in the Seabreeze area on Cape Side Drive. WACT's Ashley Balsavius has the latest update along with reaction from neighbors.
Neighbors I spoke with are in shock about the scary scene that unfolded overnight. They're left wondering why anyone would want to target their neighbor. Neighbors who live in the Cape Side Village neighborhood describe it as safe and quiet. It's a community with mostly seniors, says Christina DiNatale.
The only reason I moved here because it's a quiet neighborhood. It's a safe neighborhood. When I did my research, they never had a robbery. They never had any, crime around here.
Until now, around 3 in the morning on July 13th, 74-year-old David Rose tried to forcibly enter the home of a man in his 60s.
About 3 o'clock in the morning, if somebody's knocking on my door or banging on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can guarantee I'm going to have a gun in my hand. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So remember, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and this guy's banging on the door.
Overnight in the
Till now, around 3 in the morning on July 13th, 74-year-old David Rose tried to forcibly enter the home of a man in his 60s just down the street from DiNatale's. The man answered the door, and that's when Rose shot him. His wife attempted to close the door as Rose was forcibly trying to enter, and that's when the man acted in self-defense, shooting Rose in the head. DiNatale says it could have been an entirely different story if her neighbor wasn't able to defend himself.
Thank God I had a gun, and it protected him and his wife. or would have been a real tragedy.
Now, DiNatale and other neighbors are left with a question of why this happened. DiNatale wonders if the man targeted the wrong home. She says she has no idea why anyone would want to target her neighbor.
I just keep in my prayers that he'll pull through this.
Despite what happened, DiNatale says she still considers it a safe neighborhood and hopes this was just a one-time incident.
I think it's just a tragic accident, a freaky accident.
Homeowner is in critical condition at the hospital tonight. He faces no charges at this time. The investigation determined he used necessary force to protect himself. Ashley Balsavius, WECT News.
And think about the timeline. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a guy with a gun at your door, and he's breaking in your door. If you call 911, how much benefit are the police going to be? It's going to be all
They're
over.
not going to be. It's going to take them like 5 minutes to get there.
Best more like 10. So, at the end of the day, the person who is ultimately responsible for your safety is you, because in that situation, a guy with a gun breaking down your door, it's up to you and nobody else, because the police, all the police can, had this guy gotten in, he could have killed the homeowner, he could have killed his wife. As it is, the homeowner was in critical condition, but thank God he survived and still was able to get off a shot and hit the guy in the head. But again, at the end of the day, you are the person who is primarily responsible for ensuring your own safety, not the police, because the old saying, when seconds count, the police will be there in minutes.
Yep.
Anyway, anything you want to add?
And no, it's been a crazy week with the assassination attempt, and now the RNC is going on, and yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Crazy doesn't never let up, does it?
It never lets up. All right. So to wrap up, anyway, I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things that I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found those topics to be interesting and important as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, like for instance, that LGBTQ people complaining about that proposed legislation, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com, with Jerzee being spelled Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com. If you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, you can do that by sending me an email to simply joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jerzee with a Z-double-E. And with that, unless you've got anything to add, Producer Susan, we'll sign off and talk to you next week.
All right.
Talk to you next week. You take care. Bye-bye.